to the latest episode of 305 Vox Populi here in the town of Miami Lakes. I'm Mayor Manny Cid, and we have a phenomenal guest today. We have the CEO of Academica, Fernando Zulueta. How you doing, Fernando?
Great, Mayor. It's great to be here with you. And first, I want to thank you because you were one of the guiding lights and important part of the development of the Pinecrest Network, where you served on the board with distinction for many years.
I appreciate that.
That's, as you know, one of the top performing charter school networks in the country. And you helped guide that. And I don't know if you are aware of all the accolades that network has received, but I think last year they were the #1 ranked charter school network in the state of Nevada.
Wow.
They're actually larger right now, I think, in Central Florida than they are in South Florida. They've grown dramatically over the years. And this past year, they were the first Academica-supported school in the country outside of Florida to earn a national blue ribbon. So Michael O'Dowd, the principal, was in Washington, D.C. last week receiving the Blue Ribbon Award, and that's our first school outside of Florida to receive one. We received 2 last year. The other one was here in South Dade, Carrie Ann O'Sullivan's school in Somerset, Silver Palms, received the blue ribbon. And we now have, I believe, 20 or 21 blue ribbons in the last decade, more than any organization in the country or even on the planet, because people outside of the country don't get blue ribbons. So it's good you can be the #1 in the world as that's concerned.
That's phenomenal. That's phenomenal. Congratulations. We're going to get into that in a couple seconds. I wanted to thank some of our sponsors.
Awesome.
Miami Lakes AutoMall. Shout out to Fred Senra. He gave the seed money to start this program. So he said, you know what, I'm going to donate to get all the equipment going, the partnership with Rovi. So shout out to Fred. They're located at 16600 Northwest 57th Avenue, Miami Lakes. Their phone number is 305-455-3510. Fern, what do you think about this mural?
I was going to comment on it. I'm glad you asked me because I think it's fabulous. I'm surprised. I mean, not surprised. I'm pleasantly, because I'm an art lover, and I think it's beautiful. And I like the palm tree themes and the way it's done. So tell me a little bit about it, because I was unfamiliar with it.
Local artist Grisel Gajano,
Awesome.
she is a school counselor. So,
Nice.
But she fell in love with art, and she taught herself how to paint. And she's a friend, and when she heard about this, she said, you know what, I want to participate. So she made something very inclusive, kind of showcasing, everybody, and what Miami's all about, right?
Certainly.
We're a melting pot, and
Yeah.
I think it's really, really cool. So she worked really hard on this.
Yeah, I liked how she'd used the palm trees and used hands for the
Miami.
for the trunks. Yeah, and to spell it out. So beautiful. Great
Miami
job.
style all the way. You can text her at 786-353-8608. Our film production team, the Matter Lakes Broadcasting. Last year, this started as an idea, just a quick idea. Let's do it. Rovi was like, you know what? I got 7 top students. We're gonna line them up. Ariel showed up. Everybody showed up. But little by little, he brought in some other folks. Brought in Abetico, brought in Lewis, kind of taking it to the next level. And this year, they turned it into an academy at the school where there's 90 students that have signed up for the academy. They broadcast all the sports games for the schools. They manage the podcast, but they do it all, and they're teaching that future generation. But it just started with an idea and a conversation, and now it's an actual academy where literally this weekend I had an 8th grader come up to me at the restaurant and say, Mayor, I want to be part of the podcast. I want to be part of the broadcasting academy. I already signed up for next year, and I'm like looking around how special that was. So I wanted to give a shout out to the entire team. Micah's one of the founding members, Lou, Abetico, and Adi. I mean, they do a great job.
Well, I'm happy that to see them doing this, and it's super gratifying. And I'm a huge, one of my big heroes is Rovirosa Rene, so the principal who founded Matter Lakes, and really love the guy.
Papa Bear, we love him. He's the real deal. So Fern, we like to start off the conversation with one very simple question.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about your why. Like, why did you make a decision to say, hey, I want to make a positive impact in the lives of thousands of students? I want to change people's lives. I want to take, failing schools in these communities and turn them into great schools where kids have opportunities. But why? What's your why?
Yeah, it was an existential question the way you ask it. I was struggling I was 30 some years old. I was in my early 30s, and I had actually a very successful home building and land development company that I started as a young man. I was in my 20s, and I had worked with groups of investors, and I was building homes, which, as you know, is an important and large industry here in South Florida. And one of the most vexing problems I kept coming across is I was able to deliver everything for my future homeowners. And I was building, it was right nearby here. I think, in fact, our first ever charter school was a few miles away. It's right on Honey Hill Road.
I think it's right here on 67th, right down.
67th, the county line.
Yep.
There you go. In fact, I used to have arguments with police officers when things would happen. They would show up from Dade and Broward County, and they would argue whether that was Dade or Broward County, and they couldn't agree. We had a 305 area code in our phones, even though we were technically in Broward County. So it was crazy. But I was building a very large community there for 2,000 homes. That means 5,000 or 6,000 people were going to be living there, and they were starter homes. They were for young families. And this was going to be their first house. And if you're a home builder and a developer, the first question that people ask you when they come to your sales office on a weekend looking for a new house is, how are the schools? And I could answer every other question, like how's the shopping? Oh, good. There's a Publix nearby, a brand new one, or how's the post office? There's one nearby. But the real question that most parents, young parents, ask when they have their first young child is, how are the schools? And I had to, honestly, we didn't have any, and the ones we had were overcrowded and not very good. They were in that part of town. They hadn't kept up with growth. As you know, we were growing, and Miami Lakes is an example. These are areas that were growing very rapidly, and the schools were struggling to keep up, the public schools, especially in Southwest Broward, where I was located, building that huge community. And I was, as a developer, I was paying millions and millions of dollars as part of our, what they call impact fees for education, to the school district in Broward County at the time, for them to build schools, but they couldn't. They couldn't keep up. And that's when charter schools became an option. And it was a congressman at the time, Peter Deutsch, who was serving in the U.S. Congress, that called me up and said, hey, Fern, you know that for the first time, Florida is 1996, I think. And Florida now, they just passed a charter school law. So you're going to be able to build your own public school for your community and for the people there. And I seized that. I said, if I felt that was my responsibility as a developer. I felt if I'm building a new community, it needs to offer the folks that are moving there everything. And I said, I'm going to offer them a school. And that I founded Somerset Academy. And Peter, in fact, served on my first board. 1 year later, I founded Matter Academy here in Dade County, and Congressman Lincoln Diaz-Balart was one of the founding board members there. And it's because they really believed in the vision behind it. And I honestly did it because the parents were coming out and asking, like, we don't have a place to go and we don't have a school nearby. The great irony of it was when we opened Somerset that first year, it was called Somerset Neighborhood School because it was just supposed to serve that neighborhood. And people came from as far as 15 and 20 miles away to go to that first charter school in Broward County. And now that's flourished. As you know, my own daughters and my little son go to Somerset now in Dade County, but that's the largest. That has like 40-some schools here in Florida alone, and it's in Nevada and Texas and Utah and other places in the country. And it's flourished and grown into this wonderful network, just the same as Matter did the following year, and now is an amazing organization. So we just celebrated Somerset's 25th anniversary this past weekend. Congrats. With the principals, for all the principals in the organization came from all over the country and even from Europe and other places where we have a presence. And we celebrated the 25 years of that network. And we're, thrilled that we've been able to accomplish that. And I can't tell you it had this vision or revelation or anything at the time. I just think I do have a knack. If I credit myself with anything, is I know how to seek out really good people to collaborate with and empower them. That was all my goal. It wasn't for me. I was not an educator. And people would ask me, "Oh, you're not even an educator. You're a lawyer." And I go, "Yeah, I know. I hate myself about that part of me." And you're an accountant. And I go, "I hate myself a little less about the accounting part, but I do hate myself for being a lawyer a little bit." But I do. The only pride I take is that I think I can seek out great collaborators in life, and that's made all the difference in the world.
No, but think about that. You just celebrated 25 years from that first school where you heard those parents saying, "Hey, there are no options around here. You know, these homes look beautiful. I want to buy this house, but where are the schools?" From you building that first school, from meeting that demand where parents ask for that choice for their kids, providing a high quality education to where you're at today, to where Academica, what is it, over 200 schools?
Yeah, like 200 schools, 128,000 students right now. And that's just in the charter school
repeat
side.
Repeat that.
Let's say round it up, 130,000 students. And that's a lot of students. I think in Florida, 40 or more high schools alone. Beautiful high schools. You're familiar. Look at René Rovirosa's high school. That's like a monster, and he's in it, and it's grown. Like I said, grown a lot over 25 years now, approaching that number. Plus, we work with more than 25,000 students overseas in an entirely different program. It's called the Dual Diploma Program. And it's got dual degree and dual diploma. Because one of the things I did along the way was I started a college.
I remember that. So.
Yeah, I don't recommend people go out there to start colleges because it is a difficult and expensive proposition. But we needed to do it for a reason. We needed to vertically integrate the organization so that we could offer a nonprofit free college opportunity to the students who were in our middle schools and our high schools. And it's very important for them to graduate and accelerate them so that they, more than anything, it's the self-esteem, the boost to your self-esteem that you receive when you're a high school student and you don't think college is a reality for you because it never has been perhaps in your family. But you know what? We give it to you anyway. You can kick and scream all you want, but we're going to give you classes that are rigorous and college level. And you'd be surprised, every one of those students, once they realize that this is something that is accessible, that they can do, then college becomes a reality for them rather than just a distant dream that is not accessible. So that's the reason we did that. So really we're soup to nuts, everything from pre-K through college.
Listen, I was a commencement speaker at Matter Lakes this past year. The amount of kids that graduated with their AA, dozens. When I graduated high school back in 2002, nobody in my class had their AA. That was never anybody's dream. Now I saw 70-something kids.
It's like it's an enormous number.
Graduate with their AA, and on top of that, all the other kids that already had 10, 20 something credits already for their college degree. That was phenomenal.
Well, the visionaries are people like Rovirosa, who showed me the way. And then my job was, okay, I see where this has got to go. Now let me give it back to you on turbocharged, okay? So that's what I try to do. What I say is I work with these individuals who are visionaries and great collaborators. I listen, and then I challenge them by making their job hopefully easier, but elevating it, saying, okay, I see what you're doing. Now let's make it so every student at that high school graduates with a college degree. That's my goal. This year, in fact, out of Slam Boca, I placed this challenge at them, and I think it's Rovirosa's son-in-law, who's the principal up there in Slam Boca. Matt Buell came up to me a few years back, and he said when he became principal, he goes, I heard you, Fern, and I'm going to be the first guy that graduates a student with a 4-year degree out of high school, and you're in the network. I'm going to be the first principal to do that. And I go, well, I hope, I'm rooting for you, Matt, and I believe you have the determination to do that. And he did it. This year, Nathan Nieves, I think is his last name, Nathan Nieves, who's only 16 years old, by the way. And he's he's an outlier, wonderful kid. He will be graduating with a full 4-year degree, fully accredited, out of high school, and with and to boot, he made it a teaching degree. So he's like Doogie Howser teacher, you know what I mean? Doogie Howser child teacher. He's going to graduate at 17 years of age out of high school with a full 4-year degree and with a full 4-year certified teaching degree. So he will be able to become a teacher. He wants to get a master's in business administration, so he'll be able to articulate right into his master's degree program right out of high school. Think about it. That's what we're talking about. I don't want to do away with college. I think it's wonderful, and I think people should experience it. But nothing prevents you from doing like Nathan did and experiencing it to get a master's degree right when you're 18 or 17. And that's where the challenge is, Manny, and that's where I think we need to do as educators is raise that bar, make it accessible. People think it's inaccessible, but it's really the ghosts in your head that prevent you from doing certain things. You've done it. Look, you were talking earlier, and you're thinking of what you were doing 15 or 16 years ago and what you're doing now, leading a city. Yep. And doing a great job at it, by the way. So, and I could have never, I knew you back then, and I if somebody would have asked me, I was like, no, that kid's never going to be. No, I'm just kidding. You had it in you to be a great leader and a mayor right then, and you probably could have done it even earlier, although you're still very young. But you know what I mean? That's where I challenge the notion that you should artificially limit people. Think about it. Do great athletes find out they're a great athlete when they get to college? No, they know it.
Yep.
Great dancers, great entertainers, typically a great singer, you know it when they're 14, 13, 12. So business leaders, do you really need to wait till they're, much older to find out that they have entrepreneurial skills? Do these young folks that are working on your podcast today need to be 30-year-olds before they can start working in the industry, or can they acquire the skills and the ability to do it right while they're still in high school? I've always been a big believer of youth, and I was one of those guys that when I finished college fast. I did my undergraduate in 2 years. Because I was era acelerado, you know what I mean? I was that guy, but I wanted it. I wasn't because I wanted to miss any of those things. Some of it was just legitimate. The financial pressures you have as an son of exiled parents who were struggling to make ends meet, and I needed to contribute to my family and not be a burden on them financially as soon as possible. So I started working the moment I got to college. Even though I was a full-time college student, I was working till midnight sometimes just to, so I could buy gas money, and I remember buying gas money $1.25 at a time, right? Because that's all the change I had in my pocket to be able to afford it.
Listen, I appreciated you mentioning that, because sometimes, especially kids, they see you today. You're the head of this enormous network that's making a positive impact, but they didn't know that grind that you went through as a kid. And I think that grit is helping you today, right?
Right.
Go through walls, be acelerado, but get things done. But talking about that grit, I look at school choice from Milton Friedman when he first started beating that drum, talking about school choice. Then you had policy leaders. You had Jeb Bush say, you know what? We're going to transform Florida. But then you needed the folks that were going to take all of that and turn it into real time, to practice.
Right.
And that's where you come in. Yeah. So talk to us about those challenges of getting the theory, of school choice, getting the policy of school choice, and mastering it where it is today. The challenges to get to the point that you're at today.
You bring in some great points. Number one, I, as an attorney and a businessman, because I had studied business and I studied law, I was uniquely positioned from a skill set to be able to move into and help realize what I saw articulated in the vision of people like Jeb Bush, who were visionaries. And at the time, Jeb realized that the only way to help it reform education and make it accessible to more parents and give them autonomy and the ability to choose their destiny would be things like school choice programs, be they charters or vouchers or private schools. It's creating a diverse group of options for parents to have, and it's empowering the consumer. So fortunately, I'm a student and a lover of economic theory, and I studied a lot of it. And I was a student of folks like like Michael Porter at Harvard, who's a business professor there, who's written very incisively over competition, competitive theory, and what he had a really good book that I read that impacted me called The Competitive Advantage of Nations. And in that book, Michael Porter, in a very smart and intelligent manner, researched why was it that certain countries excelled at certain industries where they are undisputed leaders. Like, believe it or not, United States excels in making television and movies, and Hollywood is an example of that. And then we also excel in accounting, ironically, public accounting. And New York is the hub of the largest accounting firms in the planet at the time. And other countries like Germany excels in certain things like ironically, like something like making tile, really good tile for floors. Spain, Germany, Italy, Germany, and Italy excel in that. And he shows all the examples. And what he showed is, number one, you need vigorous competition. The only thing that works is when in that country, and by the way, it's not in the country, it's usually in a small area of the country. And I like to think that South Florida is that area for education choice, meaning part of what's happened in Florida and then in turn in South Florida is through the vision of folks like Jeb Bush having empowered entrepreneurs like myself and others to enter into have the possibility of offering educational freedom and options to parents. You created a vigorous ability for competitors to thrive in an economy and to offer these options and then to grow these companies. And in our case, it's a company that's grown from locally being here in South Miami or in Miami to now serving students across the planet. And that only happens when you create the right competitive environment. And I early on, I saw a need. Obviously, as you mentioned, there was this desperate need. Florida was wallowing at the bottom of the pile nationally when Jeb got there among education, right? K-12 was viewed as a disaster in Florida. Other states were really having us for lunch. Jeb is, I think, the individual that can be credited with sparking that change back in 2000 and in directing the vision of the state and making this it's the center of the education universe, certainly for K-12 in the nation. And now we can look back 25 years later or 20-some years later and see the impact that has had. And I think it's been profound. It's made Florida a world leader, in my opinion, in education. And it's elevated everyone. I think when you inject competition into a system, everybody improves, including the school districts. I see that our own Miami-Dade school district, I think, has risen to the occasion in many ways and is offering a great menu of competitive and high-quality options to its students. And you know what's funny, Manny, and I don't think some of these folks don't get enough credit. When I brought the first charter school application to Miami-Dade County close to 25 years ago for Matter Academy.
Was that converting the old BJs on 103rd?
Exactly. That was the precursor to that. It was next to Ted's Shed.
Yes. Yes.
That's Little Matter. That was what we were doing. On that board, sitting on that board at the time, among certain, was Perla Tavares Hampman, who is still today
the chair,
who is I don't know if she's been on your podcast, but she's certainly somebody that lives here in the city.
Yep.
And I think of her as another guiding light and somebody I admire greatly because people don't give her enough credit for the work she's done chairing. I think she has the undisputed Guinness Book of World Record title for being the chair the most number of times, probably 14 or 15, if not 15 already, that she's chaired that board, and to great success, in my opinion. Marta was also there back then, as I recall, and still a visionary leader in our community today. And so I think. And it's one of the things that, we talk about, that not enough women get the opportunity to be in leadership positions, and certainly in corporations, and not enough of them in government service many times and as public servants. Well, look at the Miami-Dade School Board. I think it's been majority female
Yep.
for maybe close to a decade now. And you can see how well those ladies have, and then again, the entire board. But I'm saying the fact that you have a board led by this remarkable lady, Perla Tavares, and you have these collaborators on that board that have kept it a very civil and professional debate and discourse over the years. I think that's been a big part of the success that you now see happening here in South Florida, and in particular in Miami-Dade County.
No, you got that right. And one thing you touched upon was embracing competition. And something I really admire about Principal Roy Rosa is how he embraces it, right? A lot of times when people see competition, they're like, oh, we got to change the rules or go lobby Tallahassee so there's no competition. He's like, no, bring it on. That makes us better. So I remember when Matter Lakes opened and Rovi was doing phenomenal, that, Goldman had to step up their game.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
Goldman's now a mega magnet. Goldman's a mega magnet.
I know.
And then now Rovi said, no, you know what? We're going to keep going. I'm going to build a gym. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Now you got HML saying, hey, we're going to reopen the planetarium.
There you go.
To provide better services for kids. And you got Miami Lakes Tech saying, hey, we got to get more 3D printers and do this.
There you go.
But that's something that I really admire about your principal, specifically Roy Rosa, who told me, he goes, Manny, we have to embrace competition because it benefits
everyone.
The kids, the parents, everybody across the board.
Mostly the consumers. And that's going back to Michael Porter and his book, our books, and what he showed were examples. If the mistake government makes is if they give money directly to industry, that creates complacency and it doesn't work. If, on the other hand, you empower the consumers, then let them pick which suppliers to buy from, which retailers to buy from, then things change. Then you invigorate competition, because now I don't have, the government's not going to send me the money unless I bring the consumer. The consumer is who needs to bring the money, not the government. Way too many government officials are tone deaf on that issue. And this is not about right or left or blue or red. This is about just smart or dumb. If you read very little economic theory, you will realize that the best way to improve the quality of a service or a product in any economy is to empower the consumer, not the producer, not the manufacturer. So I have a great time because I get to go around arguing against my own interests half the time. And I'm saying, I don't need any more money directly to the schools. Empower the consumer. Make sure that the money follows the child. That's what's most important. That when a child decides to go to a school, public, private, charter, whatever, make sure that the funding that the government allocates for that child follows that child to the school. Why? Because that makes the school, keeps us on our toes. We have to be competitive. We have to be relentless and tireless in continually improving our game so that what we offer is what's best for parents. I happen to be a parent. My children go to one of the schools we help support, the Somerset Network. I'm a happy parent. I love it. They do a great job. And I feel like I'm there by choice. I could have chosen, I had any number of choices available to me. And I can tell you that my collaborators, the people that work in our organization, they have their own children at our schools, all of them, because they believe in it with their heart. We're doing this as a labor of love, and we believe in it, and you get good results when you work that way.
No, and you're right. I can tell you, I'm very close to three of your principals, right?
Yeah.
Renee, Bilad Fernandez, and Carlos. And I'll give you some tidbits of all of them. Carlos is a neighbor of mine. Carlos, every day when he's traveling to either Ohio, Nevada, Carlos, or Colorado, he's like, Manny, we need to provide better options, not only here in Miami-Dade, but across the nation. Because I travel to these communities, and they don't have the options that we have. So, I mean, him just talking to me about that and seeing the demand. One of the schools that he opened up had 600 kids day one.
Yeah. North Las Vegas, I think he just that was the one. I think it was Civic on North Las Vegas.
And that's so powerful. And then Pilar Fernandez, I see her do little things Like, she does reading time on Zoom with the little kids at 8 o'clock at night, where you're like, wait a second, you're the principal and you're taking the time to do those. Imagine everything else. When you take care of the details of the small things, imagine everything. And that her demand's through the roof. I mean, her demand, if she can build, 10 stories, it'd be packed.
I agree.
And then, I remember when Rovi was building the gym, he would walk into the restaurant, I see him somewhere, and every time he pull out his phone, he's like, Manny, look at this. He goes, you can only imagine when it's done what it's going to mean for my students, for the kids. And I'm like, man, these people are so special, how much they care about. And it's not a 9 to 5. No, that's what I saw. It was like, I talk to these folks on the weekends, and they're talking about improving, not only for them, forget about the kids and those choices. So I just wanted to give you kudos on that, because it goes back to collaborating and trusting folks.
Right. It's those folks, finding those individuals and then empowering them, giving them the ability to chart their own course. They're professionals. You don't need to tell Rovirosa what to do. You just have to tell him what not to do once in a while. But the man's a hero in many of our, for many of us, and he's somebody we look up to. And and he fought long and hard to get that gym built. And I'm glad. I'm so happy when it was finally built. And he has a beautiful campus. It feels like a college campus.
Yeah, how that is. He did a phenomenal job. So one of the things we do on the podcast is one of the kids is going to ask you a question. So one of the students, Micah, what you got?
Looking forward to it.
Hello. So one of my questions is, what is Academica at large doing to stay innovative and stay competitive, especially within the charter school industry?
That's a great question, Micah. People will tell you that's one of the areas that I love to work in, and I view myself as the chief innovation officer for the company more than anything else, because I've always been a dreamer, and I study more today than I've ever have in my life. I love reading research journals and articles in research journals and seeing where the cutting edge of technology is and where the cutting edge of what we're able to do with science and research. I've been studying a lot, so we've got a couple of initiatives that I'm passionate about. One of them we were talking about earlier is we do have a partnership with Telemundo, and that's Telemundo, NBC, Universal Pictures, and Comcast, and we have an academy with them, and I want Matter Lakes, their new media production program, to be part of that. We're creating original television content. Looking forward to having you featured in one of them, because they're one of the TV shows, I'm looking at an actual series that would feature people in their careers pursuing their work, sort of like Dirty Jobs, that show with Mike, but not dirty jobs, like real jobs. Okay, so their dirty jobs are real too, don't get me wrong, but I mean, like, real jobs. Make it fun, make it funny, not talking heads, not where you just sit in front of a fireplace and tell people what you do, but actually get in and shadow those people, put in and get in the trenches with them on a day for a couple of days, and then feature that so students can see that, and in a documentary style, but it should be inspirational, educational, and entertaining. I mean, we use the phrase the 3 E's of education instead of the 3 R's sometimes, whereas that you need to engage, entertain, and enlighten. Those are the 3 E's of education. You got to engage the students, the viewers. Entertain them, make it fun. You don't have to make it boring. It's not like Bueller, like it's that boring stuff. It can be an entertaining thing, and then enlighten them. Okay, they can go away, because humans love stories, right? That's how, for time immemorial, humans have transmitted information from generation to generation. It's through stories. We want to be able to tell stories about people doing what they love with people they love, their clients, their friends, their customers, and their colleagues, and then getting results. So that's one of the projects that's on the right now. We're working on it's in the development stage. There's a bunch of work we're doing online and on the digital side of things. We created an education platform right before the pandemic hit that we had been using with our students overseas, called Collegia. And that's a very simple one-stop shop. You go there, that's where everything is. Your Zoom or whatever your telecommunications or communication software is. It's in there. It's a one-stop, single sign-on, very simple tool for parents, students, teachers, and administrators to all use together to communicate. That's the school community in a digital format. And it works in a classroom setting, and it works in at home. If you're at home or traveling and you can't go because you're sick, or you can't go into school, then you just go to class using Collegia. My son, he's in kindergarten. A week ago, they had a couple of kids in class that had colds and stuff. Not COVID necessarily. They just, like in the old days, people actually do get flus nowadays as well. And half the class had to stay home, and he was on his Collegia platform, logging into class and interacting. And what we did was we equipped the classrooms with the Classroom of the Future technology. So we work with Samsung and equipped over 5,000 classrooms in our system over the last summer. And they have large screen displays in the front of the class, in the back of the class, a tracking camera, and really high quality noise-reducing microphones, so teachers are free to walk around the classroom and they can still collaborate with students who may not be able to physically be present in class that day due to a multitude of reasons. But why should they lose out on the opportunity to be with their peers and learn with their peers? So we created this, and that's the kind of futuristic but present day technology that we need to embrace and continue to figure out how to empower our teachers. Example you just mentioned, Pilar, doing a read-along with students online at night. That's a beautiful example, and that's a teacher is using technology in a positive way. And by the way, there's very many negative ways that technology is impacting our students, and we're working on that as well. We have an entire different technology that we developed, an application that's available and being used in some of our schools where students are using exercises, mindfulness exercises, to help them deal with to exercise their minds and help them exercise greater dominion over their brains, over their mind. This stuff, it's just like exercise is a good thing on a physical, when you do physical exercise and you help your heart and your body. Mindfulness is an exercise. It's nothing more than a way of you calming your mind, focusing, learning to focus it. Ironically, just like it helps you study, and there's MIT studies with MRIs on middle school students at charter schools that they tracked, that they went through an 8-week mindfulness program, and their brains improved. They were better behaved in class. They were doing better academically, and they could actually see improvements in how they would handle stress and how they would handle conflict, because they had greater, it's the worst thing that happens to you in life is when you lose control, right? When you lose control of yourself. And that's at fault for many of the tragedies that occur in our life, right? People who lose control of their emotions, of their anger, and mindfulness helps you be more in charge of that, and to kind of step out in your own mind, step away from the situation, even though you're in it, and say, how can I pivot? How can I make this negative? How can I turn this negative into a positive? How can I avoid conflict? How can I avoid overreacting? How can I avoid using a cuss word or hitting someone physically, and instead and prove to myself that I have a power, I have an ability to control myself. So that's the kind of future-looking things that we've been working on for the last couple of years, and there's a bunch more like that, and I could be here all day, but I won't bother you with all the details.
So the real reality, especially for the youth, you constantly have to improve. Yes. You can't settle, because somebody out there will eat your lunch.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a very important message, because a lot of people think, hey, I got a degree in such and whatever, in law, I'm an attorney, I'm good. No, man. You got to keep learning. You got to keep getting better. And if you don't do that, somebody out there will win, will beat you at that. And I think that's where competition always comes in. But talking about mindfulness, and I wanted to add this in there because I 100% agree with you. We're the first city in Florida to have, before every single council meeting, I was like, look, we need to do something where we talk about mindfulness before our meetings, because I always saw when it comes to council meetings, everybody's upset. You only show up to a city council meeting if you're mad, right, about something.
Sure.
No, if you don't have a problem, I mean, how many times have you gone to your, local commission or something?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah, so we have a mindful minute. We have a guest that comes every month. He records a video, he comes in person, and he talks about mindfulness for 1 minute before every meeting. And I could tell you the amount of times that people sit back and they're like, man, he's right. And it's changed the tone of our meetings, and we've been doing that for the last 3 years.
Oh, great.
And you see that. So, yeah, mindfulness is...
Congratulations.
No.
You're ahead of the curve on that. And I think we're going to see more of this over time. Again, it's an exercise. That's why I try to explain. Some people get it's meditation and this. It is, but meditation is an exercise. And often we work hard on our bodies. People go out there and they go to gymnasiums and they jog and they run and they do other things, which they should do. But you can't, only work on your body and neglect your mind. Right. Your mind is the biggest glucose hog in your body, right? Your mind consumes 20% of your calories and is only 3% of your body weight or 5% of your body weight. Depends on the size of your head. I have a big one. But anyway, the idea being take care of it, and part of the way you take care of it is through these exercises that help you. All it is help you concentrate, help you think about and introspect, and then the other thing I do recommend, and it's a funny thing, along with mindfulness, I track my sleep a lot, and I think that's had an improvement in my own well-being, and I recommend it to anybody. I use an Apple Watch for it. There's this great app, and I have no interest in it other than I use it. It's called Auto Sleep. I use it on my Apple Watch. And I can show you, I've tracked my sleep over the last 4 years, I think, at this point, every day religiously. I've made it a habit. That's a good habit. Try to get, and it gives you, it helps you. What you're trying to do is get high quality sleep more than anything. And certainly deep sleep, which you only need to do about 15 to 20% of your sleep cycle is deep sleep. But it has a profound effect on the quality of your thinking, your ability to focus, and the clarity of which you can think with. And that is because it's during deep sleep when you basically are catatonic, for want of a better expression. Your body stops moving completely. Your heart rate drops dramatically. And that's probably when you drool, meaning it's like you are unable at that moment. And that's when you're most vulnerable. So that's part, if you think about it in our evolution as human beings, or every mammal out there, every creature out there sleeps, and part of what they do, the deep cycle, is where your brain actually cleanses itself, where your spinal fluid flows into your brain tissue, where your brain tissue has been shown through MRI analysis to shrink. And that's one of the reasons why it has to become completely deactivated, because of the electrical activity. If not, it would short. It would short and it would cause damage. So it actually has to deactivate itself and remain completely dormant for a time so that it can squeeze like a dirty sponge in a sink, and the dirty fluid can come out, and then clean fluid can come in and eliminate the free radicals, all of the byproducts of human anatomy, of the biosynthesis that occurs in the cells as they burn glucose or ketone bodies while you're active. Those need to be purged, because those generate, just like in a fireplace that you have ash building up. If you never clean out a fireplace, eventually you would be unable to have a fire, because it would just be a giant pile of ash. The same thing would happen in your mind, in your brain cells, if you didn't clean them out from the residue that accumulates during the activity that you have. And it's actually, I use the analogy of a burning fire, because that's what's happening in your mind. You're burning glucose, and you're literally, the mitochondria in your brain cells are burning to create the energy that they need to operate. So sleep is one of those things that it's helpful. Again, I don't know if you've been monitoring it, but I
do.
Okay, good, because that's one of the things, and I hope you get enough deep sleep.
Yeah, I definitely do it. And I'll tell you this is the most well-rounded conversation I think we've had on the podcast. It's touched on a lot of different points, so I appreciate that. One of the things that the kids kind of rolled into these conversations, we kind of flipped the script. And we let you ask a question or two of me.
Great.
Anything you got to...
Well, what I like people, I like to ask folks is, what do you see, where should we pivot? Where should our schools do to be more accessible and better for you and meet your needs? You're a public official, and you lead this city, and you need to, and I like to hear from the officials in the cities, like, what can we do to be more responsive to the needs of your citizens and your future citizens or your future homeowners, make it more attractive to them. And I would ask the same thing of the students that are here. What can Matter Lakes, in this case, do to be a better school for you? Because at the end of the day, that's what matters. It's what the consumer needs.
Yeah, I could tell you all do a great job. It's elevated public, private, charter, you name it, everybody across, even homeschoolers. It's elevated everybody up. But I'll tell you this, one thing where I think there has to be somehow, some way more focus, and I think you guys just bought Johnson & Wales.
We sure did.
It's more focus on those types of trades, right? A lot of times, and I gave the kids this example. My AC repair guy doesn't speak English.
Right.
Works a ton. But the guy makes more money than most doctors, and possibly most doctors out there. I mean, he nets, and I think it's a great living, but I think there's a shortage now. We're starting to see that there should be even with truck drivers. I'll give you an example. There's an 80,000 person shortage in the U.S. for is CDL license.
CDL, exactly.
Through
commercial
driver's license. But I think that is one area where I think, on the trade side, because yes, we got to push kids to go to college. But college isn't for everybody, right? And that's just a reality. Not everybody's going to be a doctor. Not everybody's going to be an attorney or whatnot. But I think what I would like to, overall, just education nationally, is that pivot to those types of trades.
I think you hit the nail on the head. And earlier I talked to you about that TV show we're working on, so that students become aware of what those jobs are. I didn't only mean it to be about, and in fact, the idea with the show is that every episode touches on one of the 17 CTE areas in Florida. So there are career and technical education areas. There are 17 of them in Florida, and they touch on each one of the areas, construction and being one of those areas. And I want to ensure, so I didn't want to miss any of them, and I wanted to make sure there's an episode for each one of those. And that's why I want your collaboration. I was talking earlier to your production team, because I want them to be creating some of these episodes. I want them to empower them to seek out the practitioners. Go follow your plumber around, and maybe not your plumber, but maybe some other one, or your AC guy, and show them that those, by the way, those are great careers. Those are wonderful fields that are too often neglected, and that we need to, and that's raising awareness is part of it. Delivering on the goods is the other part. We need to have the programs then for the students to be able to say, hey, I want to learn to be an air conditioning expert, and that's an important and growing field, by the way. Air conditioning is one of those areas, ironically, where it has a huge impact on the environment, because we consume a lot of energy to cool our homes, here in South Florida being a great example. And that's an area, for example, where Tesla is rumored to be working on entirely new. It's going to be entering that market in a big way because they had to figure out how to make the refrigeration more effective, more energy efficient in the Tesla vehicles. I happen to drive a Tesla, so I had read about this, and they needed to, because it was a battery-powered vehicle, and they needed to figure out how to cool it for you as a passenger and not use up all your battery. So there's rumors, and I understand they're about to make a big splash in that area. And you're going to see a lot of people, if there are Tesla air conditioners available, and they're very cost-effective and energy efficient, which is the most important part, then you're going to see a wholesale move into that, and you're going to need more experts. The same, so that's going to be with air conditioning, with plumbing, with electrical work. I mean, with all of the different components that are used to build our world, our real world, not the metaverse, but the real verse, the universe, and then we can help students access that. And then in the areas of transportation, you mentioned the trucking, the aviation. There's an equivalent shortage. I think it's 80,000 to 100,000 pilot shortage in looming.
We had Barrington Irving here, and he talked about it.
Barrington. I've spoken with Barrington,
and he's a great guy. He talked about it.
Yeah.
He goes, "There's jobs right now, 80, 90,000. They can't find people." And
No.
by the way, he's talking about technology. He's one of the guys testing Uber Air.
There you go.
He said in about 16, 17 months.
I met with the guys. I did they gave me the heads up, whatever the virtual experience looking at Uber Air, which got purchased by another company that's consolidating. And I was also recently in Central Florida where they put the first, I think it's Lilium, I think it's called, one of the air taxis. They just put the first station right near the airport. They're building it where they're going to have one of these electric air taxis coming up very soon, and Orlando is innovating in that area. So we just got to keep up with it here in South Florida. We can't let Central Florida outcompete us, but that's the beauty of competition. There you go.
Yep.
It's that we need to stay on it. We need our elected officials to be mindful of what's happening, where the puck is going, not where it has been, and make sure that they keep up with it. We got to distinguish. There's too often a lot of rhetoric and not enough action. I've seen public officials, they talk that you go in front of sometimes in city and in counties and stuff and trying to get a school approved. You should see that. It's shameful sometimes where you see they talk a good talk about, oh, we need more educational options. So when you bring them one, oh, but not that one because it's in my backyard or it's in my buddy's backyard and he doesn't really want a school there. I view that as, the worst form of demagoguery on the planet. If you really care and you really understand what's happening in our community and what the needs are, education should always be at the forefront. Housing, of course, and that's another one where I see way too often people, not wanting to use land in the most efficient manner possible to create housing for people that really need it, then that's affordable. And those are two areas that are critical to keep our community thriving. And if we don't do it, we'll be bemoaning the effects of it in the future when people move away, unfortunately. And we've seen people, we're getting that happening within even our own organization, because since we are spread out, we're having folks that are moving sometimes from South Florida to Central Florida because the housing is that much more affordable over there. And they're like, they continue working with us, thank God, but we hate losing them down here in South Florida just because they don't have housing opportunities that are affordable. And part of it is because we're a very attractive area for people to live in.
Demand is high.
But the other problem is we've limited the supply of land, probably in some cases unreasonably. To an exclusionary sense where we're saying no, we can't build there or we can't build that much there. And I don't want to overbuild either, but we need to be sensible about, smart and intelligent development and find the places where you can build that we must and do it in a timely basis so that our children don't need to move to other parts of the country or other parts of the state. They can grow up here.
No, you got that right. And Fernando, in closing, what's your message to future generations? Them hearing your story on how you had to grind that grit to where you're at today. I mean, what's that message that you have for all those kids?
I think that, and this is hard. Part of it is at one point or another, and hopefully a teacher will help, change your life in that direction. Is view yourself as a lifelong learner, and I think any of us in this room understand that knowledge is the key to your happiness. People worry too much about learning, living with. I gotta find my passion, and it's like no. Live with passion. You know what I mean? You'll find your passion is how you live it. Live with passion. Knowledge helps you, and learning helps you live with passion, because as you opens your eyes and you see beyond the walls that surround you, because it puts windows into otherwise blank walls and doorways into blank walls. That's what knowledge does. That's what learning does. It opens up a rather small room into a vast universe. And view yourself as a lifelong learner. what I do in my spare time. I used to read some novels and stuff, but now I almost exclusively read nonfiction, meaning I read research, I read studies, I read books that help you understand your universe better. Do that. Always stay learned. Try to stay ahead of the curve and keep informed. Don't buy everything you hear, even what I'm saying. Just go and read about it, and you'll see. And but always view yourself as a student, and and if you're a lifelong student, you'll be happy and you can live with passion.
That's awesome. That's awesome. There you have it, folks. Fernando Zulueta, the CEO of Academica. Tune in next Wednesday on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Thank you, Manny.